Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was sleeping, had to wake up. Why? Every reason I can think of. God, till the day I keep the ink up.
What's up, YouTube? Today, we'll be looking at disturbing TikToks that'll make you question reality. So without further ado, welcome to Adam Strain Reacts. Let's get her done.
When we say eat your vegetables, everyone always presumed that that was a natural thing. It's goodness from Mother Earth, and it's what we always ate. But when you look a little deeper, you find that the vegetables that we see at the grocery store are in no way natural. Take cauliflower, for instance. There is no native plant. We created that from a certain part of the mustard plant that we cultivated to produce that artificial product. You could say the same thing about broccoli and cabbage and kale. They did not exist in nature. And what about the carrot? The carrot that you think has been always a big, sugary, orange, tasty, sweet thing was a little pithy, white or purple, fibrous thing that you would not want to eat. We genetically selected for that kind of big, sugar-filled orange tuber. And what about corn? The story gets worse there. Corn is not even a natural product. We have a hard time even finding its natural precursor. So yeah, you like vegetables, you can eat them. They're probably not as bad as some of the other choices, but don't let anybody tell you that you're eating your natural diet.
That's very interesting. I haven't heard much about that. I had heard something about the corn, the fact that the corn was genetically modified through a few generations of the plant. But yeah, it's super interesting because as you try to find solutions to your diet, you go through the vegan rabbit hole, then there's the meat rabbit hole, and then it's very interesting to see that even the things that we would claim as healthy sometimes have uh, obscure origin, let's say, or that they're more man-made than we would expect them to be. So let me know if you guys knew down below about the carrots, about the broccoli. Actually, broccoli, if I'm not mistaken, is actually a flower. So if you keep the broccoli and put it in water and let it grow, it's going to create some flowers. So actually, broccoli is not technically a vegetable, I think. Very interesting. Let me know down below if you have other examples, and let's keep on rocking.
One man. This man is named Michael Jackson. So Michael Jackson saw this recovery. He sent for his son. His son had a tumor on his frontal lobe that was hurting him for 5 years. Omar, his only biological son, came from Norway to Aspen. Michael said, I want you to treat my son. I just came back from Guinea and I brought an herb known as Sia. I put the herb in a bag and I told the boy to inhale. And the boy sneezed 52 times. On the 53rd, the tumor came out at the door, right when he was going out the door. When Michael saw that, who did he call? Helga. Who is Helga? Michael Jackson's only biological son, mother. She came, she's in a bed. Well, I didn't know what was going on. She's wrapped up during the winter. I gave her the compounds. 4 days later, here come Michael. Sebi, 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 Helga is walking. My wife looked at me and said, what's wrong with Michael? I don't know. Helga's walking. Or something normal. He said, no. She wasn't walking for 5 years. She came in a wheelchair from Norway. And then Helga came and hugged me with tears coming down my shoulders and saying, I had not seen my period in 5 years. It's down today.
But Tom, they say, there's 10,000 papers in the medical literature saying they found poliovirus. Here's what they did. They took a child who had paralysis when they died. They say they had polio. They took their spine, ground it up in a blender, put it in a syringe, injected it into the brain of 2 monkeys. They didn't look for a virus. They didn't filter it. They didn't centrifuge it. 1 monkey died and the other got paralyzed, and they said that proves that polio is a contagious disease caused by a virus. And they did that to 100,000 plus monkeys. After 50 years of doing this, somebody had the bright idea of taking a spine of a normal person, grinding that up, putting it in a syringe, injecting it into a monkey's brain. You know what happened? Monkey got paralyzed. Turns out monkeys don't like injecting 10 cc's of spinal goop into their brain. Now we do it by taking the same goop, we put it on growing cells from monkey kidneys. We put in antibiotics that are toxic to kidneys. We take away the food, and if the monkey kidney cells die, we say that proves the existence of the virus. That's called isolation of the virus to this very day. Every single virus, that's how they isolate it. Now, we decided to do the same thing, but we didn't add anything from anybody who's sick. We just put the monkey kidney cells and we put the antibiotics. We took away the food, and you know what happened? The cells died. Proving that every single paper proving the existence of a virus is anti-scientific nonsense.
I have been to church like twice.
That's very interesting. You know, we depend a lot on science, and we have this idea of a clean and ethical and intelligent way forward. But to listen to the details of that experiment is excruciating. Like to say that they would break down the spinal cord and inject it into monkeys and then assume something from that is, I don't know. It's less than what I thought science was in a way. Does that make sense to you guys? Do you guys think that that's the way that we should perform our science? Because, like you said, at the end of the day, it seems like it's a bit anti-scientific, and I think I tend to agree that not only it's not ethical, it's not moral, but also that the information or the conclusions that you're gathering are not necessarily that close to reality. Very interesting. Let's keep on rocking.
My entire life. And since Charlie Kirk is unable to go to church this Sunday, I'm going to go and take his seat for him. And we'll see how it goes.
Charlie Kirk, look what you did. No parking. No parking at all. None. Had to park like 5 blocks away from church because everyone wants to come now. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Charlie.
We went to church today. It was the first time in 20 years. It was the first time for our children. We are raising 3 boys that will one day be men, and we want those boys to be as strong in their convictions as Charlie Kirk was.
Here's the line for the second service, and there's never a line. By the way, there's never a line.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
I didn't know Charlie Kirk, never met that guy before in my life, and something else that I've never done before in my life is believe in God. I'm going to wear this suit to church. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to try to be a better father, husband, and leader for my family.
Hey, who was invested in all those banks that got bailouts back in 2008? That would be BlackRock and their CEO, Larry Fink. Okay, and who's in charge of who got those bank bailouts from the government back in 2008? Federal Reserve, who worked with BlackRock and their CEO, Larry Fink. And who created the collateralized mortgage obligation in the early 80s at First Boston and then was a huge voice for subprime loans, which inevitably led to the housing crisis of 2008? That would be the CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink. And when our Treasury Secretary, Henry Paulson, was given $700 billion of toxic asset relief money, hey, what's going on? What did he use it on? Did he just buy toxic assets? No, Paulson instead shifted focus to injecting capital directly into banks, and 8 of those 9 banks were heavily invested into by BlackRock and their CEO, Larry Fink, who started BlackRock with Blackstone's founder, Peter G. Peterson. And Peter wrote reports for Nixon, and one of those reports would get us off the gold standard, who many people will attribute to the inflation we're seeing today. And who benefits from all these assets, like housing, inflating? Well, that would have to be the world's largest asset holder, and that's BlackRock and their CEO, Larry Fink.
Now, I do believe that at one time there were giant trees, and the Devil's Tower is a remnant of that. Now, can you imagine how big this tree at one time could have been? Because even it being a stump right now, it is 867 feet tall. Lots of people theorize that this is just a form of something volcanic. So why does it look like tree rings magnified 1,000 times? Because to me, this is just a petrified tree stump. Because why is it so hard to believe that we have living trees this big, but at one time we had trees that were more amazingly bigger?
So why is bread worse than sugar? Sugar is overloaded in the environment. We're eating way too much. But it is natural, and we are equipped to handle sugar. Wheat is a different story. It is genetically modified through selective breeding that doesn't even have the normal number of chromosomes. It has something that we call tetraploidy, or double the number of chromosomes through selective breeding. The carbohydrate that's in there has been modified to be a high glycemic, easy to digest form of amylopectin called amylopectin A, which was not prevalent in ancient wheat. That means that your blood sugar can go up from 70 to 120 milligrams from a single dose. That's worse than you would get from sweetening your tea. And there's a third problem that's even more sinister. This genetically selected, modified strain of wheat produces addiction. When you eat this, you produce an opioid that is not naturally occurring, that makes you crave more of the same. It's called gliadorphin 7. So yes, eating 2 slices of whole wheat bread is worse than eating a tablespoon of sugar.
Wouldn't it be crazy that while Charlie Kirk was dying yesterday, pretty much the same time the shooting happened, the Senate was voting on releasing the Epstein files, and Republicans actually voted to block it. So yeah. That'd be crazy. You know what else would be crazy?
The DOJ should immediately move to unseal all the Epstein documents in the Southern District of New York.
Yeah. Everything. Everything except sexual assault material.
I think every file should be released to the public the same way as the JFK files.
That'd be crazy if that was just like 2 days ago. Yeah. Look, man, I was harsh on Charlie because he was very pro-Israel for a while. It seems like he had turned. And, I mean, I don't know. Am I going fucking crazy? Or what? By the way, did you know that a private jet took off like 10 minutes after the shooting, very close by, and then turned off its tracking? That is the code. If we got any pilots or people that can track that shit, get on it. Peace.
So right, we'll make a human sacrifice. What? I'm your guide. I'll get you through the night. We're living well now with President AI.
It took me a minute. Where does Pinky go? Well, if we know the president is being AI'd, I wonder what other things could be AI'd. Sorry.
Wars don't happen unless the banks agree to finance them. The banks always finance both sides of the war. I mean, even the 9/11 media narrative, that was provided to them in advance. Some of them started their stories too soon, before the planes hit the buildings. This whole idea of a European military, that's another word for NATO, and it's another word for a military that bankers can use. NATO basically arranges wars. Let me also point out to everybody that most rich people in the United States do not pay taxes. Most corporations and banks do not pay taxes. The system is rigged so that it's paid for on the backs of the little people. The Federal Reserve and the CIA and the Internal Revenue Service were all created by Wall Street, which works for the City of London, okay? They were created in order to shift the financial burden to the small people and relieve the banks.
Wouldn't it be crazy if you're a victim of one of the biggest scams in human history? The US dollar is backed by nothing. And like you have to buy oil with American money. So the rest of the world is also a victim here, not just Americans. And wouldn't it be crazy that every day you go to work for your money, the Federal Reserve prints more And that simultaneously means that the money you're working for is worth less as you're working for it. The very idea of the Federal Reserve was concocted in a secret meeting held on Jekyll Island back in November of 1910. And it was just top financiers, bankers. They made this up, not politicians. You see, back then, before, the US dollars could be redeemable for gold. Like it was backed by gold. That's what that means. And wouldn't it be crazy that in 1933, with the passing of Executive Order 6012, the American government confiscated all the gold? And I guess it'd be kind of crazy if during COVID in March 2020, there were new policies passed. And these new policies made it so that any bank within the Federal Reserve System does not have to keep reserves in their vaults or anywhere. They don't need to have reserves. So they're giving you money they don't have. In the heat of the financial crisis of 2008, it is estimated that every dollar that was in a bank had been loaned 150 times. Furthermore, borrowers, so like big companies and rich people, hedge funds, yada, yada, real estate probably, the top tier borrowers get access to the freshly printed money before everyone else. So what does that mean? They get it at a lower rate when the money's worth more, and then they will, lend it out. It gets dispersed into, down to the rest of us scum. But that effectively means that by the time you get around to paying these people back, you're paying them back with money that's literally worth less value than it was when you got it. Nothing's changed. Just your money is now worth less because of inflation. So it's actually not that crazy for me to sit here and tell you money's not real, but we all need it.
The film is based upon this book, right? Yeah, that's right. This book, Schindler's List. Now, as Mr. Zundel said, this book is a work of fiction. Yeah. Then, Mr. Zundel, you pointed out to me in so many places, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to take the liberty to read part of it here. This book, in the beginning, in the back, and front cover, says this is a work of fiction. Now, think what that, well, let me read it to you here. This is in the very front cover. It says, this book is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. And now, I'm going to let that soak in, friends. That's right out of the book here. Schindler's List. It also says this. It says, any resemblance to actual events or locales or persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. Now imagine, we've got in America today this Schindler's List being shown to school children as if it's the truth, and the author right away says, hey, this whole thing is imagination. We made it up. It's fiction.
Yeah, we have governors of states like New Jersey and California actually decreeing that school students must go and see the film. They have over 30,000 teaching guides already shipped out. It is an amazing thing to me that we are trying to teach our children about a historical event, alleged historical event, based on a prize-winning novel.
Well, let me read another one in the back. Let me give you another one here. It says, in addition to Schindler's List, which won the book's prize, and the LA Times book award for fiction. So, here we have a film, ladies and gentlemen, Schindler's List, being shown to our school children as truth when it's based on the book that says this is a work of fiction. In other words, it's not true.
I know you've heard that Bill Gates is...
I know this is a tough subject, and I know that talking about this is not easy for a lot of people, but normally that means that it's a good thing to look into and to question. Now, when I came in touch with that movie, my mom explained to me, and that's exactly what she said. She said that this was basically a true representation of what had happened, and yeah, so now we know that it's a work of fiction. So, it pushes someone to wonder, what else is either fictitious or exaggerated. Like, I'll give you an example. There's this woman that says, Like I saw the pictures. She's a survivor from Auschwitz or something like that. She says, I saw the pictures that you guys posted for Auschwitz, and those weren't real pictures. And then the person says, why? She says, because there was no snow. When they came to liberate us, it was full of snow, you know? So it's just an example that they're using pictures. So how far does it go? You know, if it's not the right picture, the movie is fake, everything is based on fiction, makes you wonder, you know. Do you guys think that everything happened the way we think it did, or do you guys think that there might be a little margin of error? Let me know what you guys think down below. And let's keep on rocking.
Buying up all the farmland in America, but have you actually seen any evidence of it? Like, how do we know that he's buying up all the farmland in America? Well, when you look into the story of how we found out, it only gets sketchier. And it's just kind of interesting. The trail started here when a reporter at the Tri-City Herald noticed that one of the biggest rural land purchases in recent American history had just happened on the border of Washington. They paid $171 million for 14,000 acres. But then it got weird because the tax filing showed 100C LLC, which is incorporated in Delaware but based out of Monterey, Louisiana. And it shared a P.O. box with Angelina Farm Partnership, aka Angelina Agricultural Company. The story got picked up by an investigative reporter at the Land Report, and this had tickled his curiosity because they tracked this stuff and he'd never heard of Angelina Agriculture. And he dug into them and found out that Angelina Agriculture has 2 employees and apparently makes $300,000 a year, which I was able to corroborate pretty quickly. 2 employees, $346,000 a year, according to this source. Yet they're paying $171 million for some land. But then, the reporter tracked down the address of Angelina Agriculture, and the listed address led them here, to this shack on a highway in Louisiana. The business registered to this shack had dropped $171 million to buy up a bunch of really fertile farmland in Washington state. This little shack over here dropped $171 million over here. I did my own digging and corroborated this address. It was a little tricky to track down, but I found a few different sources that agreed. So where does Bill Gates come into all this? Well, various investigative reporters stayed on the case for up to a year, sifting through multiple layers of corporate ownership. They noticed that Angelina Agriculture, although it's based in Louisiana, it shares a corporate mailing address with Bill Gates' Cottonwood Ag Management in Kirkland. And then this other reporter, Janiak, traced through the paper trail and it led back to Cascade Investment, LLC, which is Bill Gates' investment management firm that manages his money and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's money. And real quick, I couldn't help but notice that it's the successor company to Dominion Income Management, which he used to use and was headed by convicted felon Andrew Evans. So Andy Evans was a speed racer, and he was in the finance industry in the 80s and got convicted for fraud, bank fraud, and SEC rule violations, probably because he was getting in on that 80s fraudulent fucking gold rush in Wall Street. And that's why Bill Gates personally selected him to be his personal investment advisor. That's interesting. Then when people started to catch on to who Andy Evans was, Bill Gates got rid of him and was like, oh, that's a little scandalous, and switched up. But anyways, it's true. Bill Gates is one of the largest owners of farmland in America, and he's acquiring it all through kind of quiet, suspicious, sketchy means. The Land Report put together this assessment of farmland owned by Bill Gates through all of his holdings. You can see that a lot of it is in Louisiana and Arkansas. And a lot of it is in Washington, too. And there's plenty of non-sinister reasons to own farmland. I mean, it's a good investment. It doesn't follow the stock market. It's on the up and up. They're not making any more of it. Lots of perfectly legitimate reasons to explain why a billionaire like Bill Gates would buy so much farmland. But I don't know. You tell me. What do you think is the plan going on here? Why do you think Bill Gates is buying all the farmland? I wonder what other associated industries Bill Gates is invested in.
To this day, we don't know exactly where eels come from. Eels have no reproductive organs. Thousands of years ago, people noticed this and were like, okay, then where do they come from? Aristotle came up with a theory that when rainwater mixes with mud and it washes into the ocean, that becomes an eel. Aristotle's logic here made no sense, but for thousands of years, that was the accepted truth. Here's what's interesting. So there's this guy in the late 19th century, and for 10 hours a day, for years, he'd dissect these eels and try to find their reproductive organs, and he never found them, and it messed this guy up. We have letters that he sent back to his family. He said, when I close my eyes, I see the carcasses of eels. Eventually, he abandoned it, and he went on to become Sigmund Freud, the psychologist.
Wait, you're serious?
Sigmund Freud, 100%. To this day, we don't know exactly where eels come from. We have never seen a wild eel or an eel in captivity reproduce at all. We've never seen it happen. They've attempted to breed them. It's not worked. They've attempted to chip them with like satellite positioning and follow them. We've never seen it happen. Eels are weird, man.
This instant oatmeal right here. Me personally, I like the strawberries and cream the best. Notice right here where it says natural flavor. When I learned this about natural flavor, it tripped me out. Matter of fact, just hold on, watch this.
The FDA allows companies to use virtually any natural product to create a flavor. And castoreum, typically called natural flavor, is taken from a beaver's anal gland. It's far cheaper to use castoreum, or beaver's butt, to flavor strawberry oatmeal than using actual strawberries. They don't want you to know what's in that natural flavor either. Just try to call the company and ask. They'll tell you it's proprietary.
It's nasty, right? And to think about these natural flavors, another thing that tripped me out, there's actually been billions of dollars spent in research and development to make natural flavors to make us want to keep on eating more. That's why it leads to weight gain. So check this out. One thing that I did, I stopped eating those. I like to go to the sprouted oats. I make the oatmeal from scratch, and then I chop up strawberries, blueberries, you know what I'm saying? I put some maple syrup in it, and then make it taste even better, man. My name's Jabez. I lost 100 pounds. This was me in 2014, but I did it still eating the foods that I like to eat. That's why I'm always saying read the ingredients. What it was, I had to learn how to choose the right versions of the food that I like to eat. That's why I wrote my book, Life Matters, so Let's Z Like It, to explain how I did it. We've helped thousands of people lose weight with this book. If you ever go to lose weight, it will help. We're doing a back to school sale. Shout out all the parents that's taking care of their kids. If you want to grab a copy, feel free. I got our website link underneath my profile picture. Curls up, blessings up.
I don't know if that's real or if that's an illusion or if maybe we're not seeing properly, but damn, it really looks like whatever's creating that smoke is creating all of the clouds. I've seen some videos of like a NASA machine that sort of blows up all kinds of clouds into the sky, but I'd never seen something like this. It looks so natural. Have you guys ever seen something like this? Let me know down below. It's the first time I see it like this so clearly, and she's so far away, so it's very interesting. Let's keep on rocking.
How can you claim a 6,000-year-old Earth when carbon-14 results are coming back 50,000 years?
The 6,000-year-old Earth actually comes from the historical record of the Bible. Carbon dating does produce ages typically around 50,000 years, say, but when we take into account things like the decay in the Earth's magnetic field, which means that more and more carbon-14 is being produced today than was in the past, and when we take into account the effects of the flood, which would have dramatically changed the ratio of carbon-14 to carbon-12, then we find that those 50,000-year dates actually contract back to around the time of the flood, which, according to Bible history, was about 4,500 years ago. That provides a wonderful calibration point for all carbon dates.
It doesn't use fuel, but this bird has basically invented its own biological jetpack, and the truth is more insane than you can imagine. This is the common swift, a bird so perfectly designed for flight that it almost never lands. I'm not kidding. Scientists tracked them and made a mind-blowing discovery. Swifts can stay in the air for up to 10 months straight without ever touching the ground. That's the longest continuous flight of any bird. How is that even possible? They do everything on the wing. They eat airborne insects, they drink by skimming water, and they even mate thousands of feet in the air. But the craziest jetpack feature, they sleep while flying. They ascend to high altitudes, shut off half their brain at a time, and enter a slow gliding descent, essentially napping on autopilot. Their only weakness? The ground. Their legs are so short and weak, they can't take off from a flat surface. They are built for one thing and one thing only, living in the sky. A true master of the air, the closest thing nature has to a living jetpack. What's the craziest animal superpower you know of?
You know, like, you remember the milk mustaches with all the athletes?
You notice you don't see that anymore?
Yeah.
It's illegal. They did studies and they found out that milk actually does not do a body good. Milk actually causes you to leach calcium from the bones, making the bones more brittle.
Wow.
So that's why you don't see those commercials anymore.
We're just walking in front of it like we're not recording.
It happens. People are people. None of it's intentional. Never attribute to malice what can be attributed to incompetence. It's far more likely that they're all in their own worlds, doing their own thing. They're not paying attention to the world around them. And we all do it every day, whether you're driving, walking down the street. All of our lives are just as complex as everybody else's. Everything you have going on, they have going on. Nobody knows what everybody else is going through. We also need to be a little more self-aware and aware of the world around us.
That was deep.
You gotta look deep to find the deep things. If all you ever do in your life is stay at the surface, you'll never find anything worth exploring.
And that's a wrap for today, familia. Whether you're tuning in with the sunrise or you're posted up after midnight, I appreciate your time, your energy, your curiosity. Remember, this isn't about truth or fiction. This is about perspective. If this sparked a thought, a laugh, a deeper question, then we did our job. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Keep the convo alive. Like, subscribe, and hit that bell if you're riding the wave, because we're just getting started. Until next time, stay grounded, stay weird, stay critical. I'm Adam Strain, and this has been Adam Strain Reacts. Peace. What y'all think, but now's the time for us to link up. Really think we on the brink of making a change from living this strange. Living this strange.